Thank you for viewing our final project. This is the presentation of the key components of our field project. We are working as a capstone group, and our capstone group consists of Chauncey Brown, Lillian Rose, and Taylor Shaw. We look forward to reading your feedback and ideas at the end of this project. Our field project is based on the topic of using qualitative methods to explore and redesign professional development at Fort Myers Middle Academy, emphasizing tailored, interactive, and sustained approaches based on adult learning theories. Our initial research question at the beginning of this course was, how do teachers perceive the PD, professional development program design, for supporting the restorative practices, knowledge, and practice? Our revised question, which is still the question we're working on now, is how can restorative behavioral practices be supported through participation in professional development at Fort Myers Middle Academy? Our main reasoning for completing this and really focusing on Fort Myers Middle Academy is that as a group, we hope to use the data collected from this project to extend the work of our final capstone project. Because we are conducting our final capstone project at Fort Myers Middle Academy, this seemed like a perfect fit. Our group's framework for the entire project really falls under constructivism. It's this idea that we are focusing on teacher self-selection of professional development topics. Also, we're focusing on community interactions, especially in context-specific experiences, especially with classroom management and restorative practices. Some additions to our project or developments that have been made is the integration of andragogy. We are recognizing the need for acknowledging and finding self-directed and experience-based learning for adults. We're also focusing on adult learners' intrinsic motivation when searching for specific professional development sessions overall. Our research paradigm also aligns with the constructivist approach, which is knowledge is constructed through social interactions and those reflective practices, and learning in context specific learning is context specific and emerges from community engagement. And through that's why we have chosen to do our observation through professional development sessions, and we are interviewing teachers that have participated in professional development and who have led professional development at Fort Myers Middle Academy. When it comes to our overall approach, though, when it comes like our qualitative methods, we are using in-depth interviews and observations to gather our contextual data. Then for our final project, we're also using the communities of practice to foster collaborative learning. And again, for our final project, we're going to be implementing peer review to encourage authentic interaction and continuous feedback. The research takes place at Fort Myers Middle Academy. It is a public middle school in Southwest Florida. All three researchers, us, interviewed 3 teachers. For anonymity, we have omitted their names, and we are only using their initials in the research findings. We gained access to these individuals through the school administration and their individual consent, and we conducted all of our interviews via Zoom. We did get consent from each participant to record the interview so that we could be able to get the transcription. And we did our interviews during the school day for the convenience of the teachers, so no one would have to do an interview outside of their working hours. And we are also balancing research bias due to personal connections with the educational field. So all of us have a connection to education. And then also Taylor Shaw works at Fort Myers Middle Academy, adding another layer. So we have acknowledged that within our research findings. For our data collection procedures, we conducted qualitative interviews and observations and collected PD reports and artifacts for triangulation. The only adjustments that we made were adjusting schedules in some interviews were set for one day and had to be pushed back another day. And then we also conducted all of our interviews via Zoom for convenience.
Data collection consisted of observations and qualitative interviews. We each observed professional development sessions within our work locations as non-participants to obtain context into PD implementation and participant engagement. Detailed field notes from our observations were compiled with interview notes to corroborate interview data. Qualitative interviews were also conducted with selected teachers within the Fort Myers Middle Academy setting, and interviews were conducted via Zoom during the school day. For ethical considerations, administrative consent was obtained prior to interviewing. These individuals were selected because they're novice teachers, and each teacher can provide a plethora of information as it relates to missing components of applied behavior management knowledge within the school setting. We believe interviewing teachers about their feelings or experiences with managing student behavior can provide valuable insight into the practical challenges and successes within classroom settings. To answer our research question, interviews assisted us with acquiring firsthand accounts of the strategies in which teachers find most effective, as well as some common obstacles they face in implementing these strategies. Our goal is to utilize this qualitative data from observations and interviews to highlight teacher support needs and professional development interest. Interviews and observations were conducted between the time frame of May 7th and May 21st. We each selected a teacher to interview and posed 10 semi-structured uniform interview questions to participants concentrated on classroom behavior management. The primary themes of our questions were continuous learning and professional development, behavior management strategies, understanding and addressing misbehavior, collaborative and reflective practices, and adaptation and evolution of practices. Teachers provided insightful responses, which helps us to identify their needs as we develop context-specific modules tailored to strategy implementation. To reduce bias and enhance validity, reports and artifacts obtained from our observations and interviews are being used for triangulation. For triangulation purposes, we're compiling each of our interviews to identify common patterns as well as themes. We're also compiling data from our observations to obtain strategy implementation and participant engagement practices. In addition, we're also analyzing professional development history from the school from past years to track PD frequency and outcomes. Currently, we have triangulated our data sources consisting of interviews, observations, as well as artifacts. One of our group members is a coach within the school, so she has provided an opportunity to periodically verify data collection accuracy with participants for accountability as well as transparency. For reliability and validity, we have maintained detailed field notes. To date, we've completed initial coding of all respondent interview qualitative data to identify themes or patterns, and we've also developed preliminary themes related to professional development effectiveness as well as engagement. And we've also cross-checked themes with professional development records and artifacts for triangulation. Methods attempted have been thematic analysis and constant comparative method. Combined benefits of both of these methods have been applying in-depth analysis using an iterative approach for refinement, ensuring conceptual clarity, and confirming our themes are supported by data, as well as learning from multiple perspectives. Positionality consisted of both insider and outsider perspectives. During the observation, we intentionally selected to have an outsider perspective, which enabled us to continuously reflect on potential bias, acknowledge participant background and experiences, as well as adapt our approaches to the content of the observations. For the interview, we took dual outsider and insider perspectives. Taking an outsider perspective allowed us to gain shared experiences with our participants, maintain credibility with participants, as well as mutually learn from participants. Taking an insider perspective provided us with an in-depth understanding of the content. The following are significant statements from each participant that enabled us to obtain viewpoints related to professional development, classroom management strategies, as well as continuous learning.
To organize our findings, we separated everything into 5 separate themes. The first of which we have as continuous learning and professional growth, where we saw both the interview and observations emphasize the importance of continuous learning for teachers' professional growth. The second theme that emerged was clear expectations and consistency, meaning establishment of clear expectations and maintaining consistency in behavior management techniques that are identified as crucial elements in managing classroom behavior effectively. The third theme that emerged was practical strategies from professional development. So, professional development sessions, including those focused on restorative behavior practices, provide teachers with practical strategies that can be implemented immediately in the classroom. This was also a very, very valuable finding. Peer collaboration and review is our fourth. Both the interview and the observations highlighted the positive impact of peer collaboration and review processes on classroom behavior management. The final theme that emerged was the role of leadership and school culture. So, observations shed light on the role of school leadership and culture in supporting effective behavior management practices. After reviewing our findings from both the interviews and our observations, we were able to notate that there were very clear-cut themes that emerged from our findings. We separated those into categories that you can see off to the right on the table. And the three most important that we found were effective teaching strategies, participant engagement, and instructional delivery and content. Following those three, we also would like to note that the categories of collaboration and sharing also held importance, in addition to communication and organization, as well as personal growth and impact. Some conclusions, dilemmas, limitations, and reflections. We really aimed to explore the nuanced dynamics of effective classroom behavior management, as well as continuous professional development from the perspective of teachers, while leveraging insights from both interviews and observations as we undertook this field project. To address the assessment of trustworthiness, by adhering to established qualitative research methods, maintaining detailed records of data collection and analysis throughout this process, we truly sought to enhance the credibility and dependability of this study. While we do understand that the transferability of our findings may be limited due to the fact that it's a very specific context at one school setting or one research site, being Fort Myers Middle School, we did take efforts to make sure that we provided sufficient contextual details that would facilitate an understanding for those who fall outside of this specific setting. We also sought to maintain transparency throughout the entirety of this research process. Due to the fact that this study was completed in a singular school setting, we are aware that there are certain limitations surrounding that fact. The relatively small sample size that produces may limit the generalizability of these findings. So in summation, as we reflect on the work that we just completed in this project, we achieved trustworthiness because we maintained thorough, rigorous, qualitative methods throughout this project, as well as detailed records and peer feedback. Our positionality, again, as we discussed earlier, we really came to this project with a leveraged educator background amongst the three of us as researchers, and also with site familiarity, while we managed biases through our own personal reflexivity. As I discussed before, the limitations include the small sample size, which is produced from our results and findings coming from a singular school setting. This can produce a lack of generalizability, as we also note prior. Some future directions that we plan to take this work in would really just be continuous analysis and further data collection through the overall capstone project, since this work was really part of what is going to be going into our capstone project. Some new questions that materialize through all of this is really regarding the effectiveness of peer mentoring itself, and the integration of restorative justice principles in new designs for professional learning, professional developments, and for trainings of those within the educational field.